Hi everyone, it's Andrea Tooley from AndreaTooley.com. Thank you so much for watching this video. Today I've got an awesome interview for you today with Robyn Coale of the Real Life RD, and she's going to talk to us all about being a nurse practitioner. Well, she's in nurse practitioner school, but stay tuned and you'll learn more about being a registered dietitian, kind of her thoughts on health, and her little space in the healthcare world. And so I hope you enjoy this video. I hope you learn a ton. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that you never miss a video in the future. And leave your comments below. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Oh, I'm Robyn. I'm from Indiana. I am from Indiana, Indianapolis. And I did my undergrad, born and raised there. I did my undergrad at Indiana University. Actually started out as a pre-med student for 2 years, and then decided that I really love nutrition, and I was really frustrated with Western medicine and pharmaceuticals and all of that. And so I said, I'm doing the nutrition thing. So I got a bachelor's in dietetics, and then minored in public health. And then went to do my internship at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, Virginia. And I did that for 10 months. So I graduated from that in July of 2012, and then sat for the exam and became an RD in August. And like 2 months into my internship, I got a job with a Western trained doctor who used to be the chief fellow at UVA doing tons of cancer research, vitamin A and cancer research. So Western trained endocrinologist, done all of that, and decided that there was a better way. So he opened up this like holistic alternative medicine practice, and then was partnering with another MD who was more of a GP, a general practitioner, and then was doing sports medicine. So it was such a good, that a year and a half in that job, and I just happened to be at a movie showing for Forks Over Knives, and he was on the panel for that, and I just introduced myself and was like, hey, if you ever want to hire a dietitian, I'll be graduating. And he emailed me 2 weeks later. Wow. It's crazy. So that's how I got the job. But my point being with that job was that it was the first experience that I had that showed me you didn't have to practice. You could be Western trained, but you didn't have to practice this pigeonhole we can find ourselves in with Western medicine, to where we get into this cycle of prescribe, manage, prescribe, manage. And instead, we're really getting to the root cause of things and helping people to heal, taking people off medication. So I worked there for almost 2 years. At that time, it was a holistic startup practice, so I needed another stream of income. And so I started Nutshell Nutrition, which is the private nutrition practice I run now, just out of a passion to reach a broader audience and to talk to people about food and maybe make $1 here and there. And I started blogging after Kath from Kath Eats was like, you should totally start a blog. She's one of my RD friends in Charlottesville. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. So I did, and I started writing, and I'm sure, as you know, or a lot of other people, I'm being long-winded here, but...
No, it's great.
Okay, all that to say, I started writing, and of course, I was bumbling fool all over the place. I didn't really have a focus. I was just but my point with the Real Life RD was just to be hey, RDs are real people, and I don't sit around and eat carrot sticks all day. I still go to the bar and brunch and all these things. I'm a very normal human.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to shed light on what healthy living looks like in real life. So I started it that way.
And that's your blog, The Real Life RD.
The blog is The Real Life RD. Fast forward a year. In Nutshell Nutrition, I had clients streaming in here and there, but nothing steady. But so I was the first year, I was the only RD at this practice. There was tons of work to be done. We were launching wellness programs and a lot of just building. So a year in, I started realizing that I talk about metabolism and hormones all day at this clinic I work at, because I work for an endocrinologist, and I was learning more than I learned in 5 years of school. And I was I should just start. And I was actually talking to Claire Brady of Fitting It All In one day about eating enough and women and how we think we shouldn't be eating enough, or how we think we don't need that much, and metabolism and hormones. And I was I'm just going to start writing about this. Why am I not writing about this?
Yeah.
And so I shifted out of writing about just my day-to-day life and what I eat, and more into this nutrition wellness focus. And when I did that, the clientele for Nutshell just kind of started pouring in. I wrote one post on how we should be eating more, and I think got 30 clients in a day.
Oh my gosh.
So I was
Holy moly.
maybe I should just start writing about this.
Yeah.
So I just started, that's when like the focus of my blog shifted. And I started really gearing it towards nutrition, wellness, like actually like putting like information out there rather than just like my life.
Yeah.
And so I did that. Nutshell grew. And then over the next 6 months, being at the practice and doing the wellness program I was doing there, and then between all the clients that I was building at Nutshell, which was mainly women with past eating disorders or disordered eating, or being in like a dieting, tornado for 10 years, I started realizing I was really stuck in terms of my dietetic practice.
Okay.
So I could only talk about food. We talk about hormones and, getting a thyroid panel and all these things. But I had to be like, can you go get that from your doctor? Or like, there was I couldn't do any of that. And I felt extremely stuck. And meanwhile, I was totally fascinated by the doctors I always worked with. So I just had this idea one day. I always had like PA school in the back of my head. I was like, because at that point I like knew like the lifestyle that I wanted to ultimately lead wouldn't lead me to medical school.
Okay.
I don't think I had a burning desire enough to be a doctor. I think to be a physician like you just, there has to be like so much more passion behind there.
That is so key what you just said. That is huge. You have to know that. And if you don't do it.
Yeah. Like there's so much sacrifice. Like the road is long. It's hard. And for me at that point, I was like, I love all this, but I don't think I love it enough to go to medical school.
That's great that you knew that.
Yeah. So because for me, I was like, I want to be a mom and all these sorts of things. And by that point, I was 24, 25. So I I think that it's total side note. I think it's very tempting to just want to go full blown into medical school instead of choosing something like, PA and P, that route.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people end up just, plowing into medical school and then they're like, oh my God, this is like so much.
Yeah.
Rather than being like, hey, there's other options. And that's why there are other options. So, at least for me, I know I had to swallow a little bit of pride and be like, I'm not going to be a doctor.
But that doesn't matter. If you're doing what you want and treating patients, like you can still do exactly what you want.
Yeah, totally. So the more I talked to a few people, I started to realize that medicine might not be my best fit anyways, to even when I started looking at PA school. So medical school was kind of still on the table, and then I started to realize, okay, I don't know if medicine, like the medical route is my thing. I think that I started to talk, some lady said, have you ever thought about being a nurse practitioner? I never even thought that was an option because I don't have a BSN. I'm not
a nurse.
And so how the heck am I going to go from RD to NP? So I started researching programs, and the first program I found was Vanderbilt's, and I was like, oh my God, this is like totally doable in like 2 or 3 years. Like, this is crazy. So I did a lot of research, and I would say within like a month, I had decided I was going back to nursing, or I was going back to school, and I was going to be a nurse practitioner. The nursing education, the nursing philosophy totally resonated with me. Okay. We need doctors and we need nurses, but they're totally different.
Yes.
And so they complement each other, but and we both we need each other, but they're both very different. And so I think some people are definitely suited to be doctors, and some are definitely suited to be nurses. And for me, nursing really resonated. And so I decided I was going to go back to school and be a nurse practitioner. And so I took the GRE. I took that. I studied and took it in like I think 2 or 3 weeks. My scores were good enough to get me into school. And then I started traveling and visiting schools. It was very fast. Like, it was a very fast, like, by the time I decided to go to nursing school and by the time I enrolled, it was about a 7-month period. Wow. So, thankfully, I already had the prerequisites for my undergrad. So it wasn't like I was taking classes or anything. So I'd applied to 4 schools and ultimately decided on Columbia because of the clinical experience I was going to get and the patient demographic I was going to be exposed to. Those were kind of 2 big things for me. I knew I was going to see a wide variety of things, be in very uncomfortable situations, and the faculty there just really impressed me. So that's what got me back to school, and then I started in May of 2014. It was a very intense 12-month program to become a nurse. It was about 60 credits in 12 months. Yeah, so it was very fast. It was like 20 credit semesters. My first summer in New York, moving to Manhattan and taking 20 credits in 8 weeks was one of the most intense experiences of my life.
I can't believe that.
But it was an awesome year. People are like, how can you become a nurse in 12 months? And I'm like, it's really intense immersion. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. So it's like 12 hours of straight class a week, like 10 hours of just class, and then 2 full clinical days. So like 20 hours of clinical, and then labs and stuff like that. So I took the NCLEX just this past August, and then became a nurse. And so right now I'm in the 3rd out of 5 semesters to become a nurse practitioner. So at the end of this year, it will all be done. And I will be a nurse practitioner in December. So that's very exciting. So right now I'm still doing the private practice to bring it all full circle. I feel like I'm being very long-winded.
No, it's great.
To bring it all full circle, I'm a full-time student at Columbia, and then still doing the private practice. It's picked up more than it was during my BSN year, but I still did it during the BSN year. Writing the blog, and then I do IV infusions as a nurse part-time as well.
Cool.
So that's kind of where I am now.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for kind of sharing your whole background. That's perfect. Do you think before we jump into the whole nurse practitioner thing, you could just give us an overview of like what a registered dietitian is, what kind of things you can do as an RD, like why someone might want to be an RD, and just kind of information about that?
Yeah.
Thanks.
So a registered dietitian is, I think it's important to distinguish it from a nutritionist.
Yes.
So a nutritionist, so let's take it as what an RD is. Is that someone who has a bachelor's degree in dietetics, and then has gone on to do a 1-year internship, which is kind of like 1 year of grad school where you're working full time in clinicals 40 hours a week, and then you're going to class. There's like a 1 day of class day. You don't get any sort of degree or anything like that. Doing the internship allows you to sit for the RD exam. So then you take the RD exam, and then you get credentialed as a dietitian. What distinguishes a dietitian from any nutritionist is that you're trained in medical nutrition therapy. And so therefore, you know how to interpret lab work and interpret any sort of other diagnostic testing, even though you are not diagnosing. But you know how to interpret that, and you know how to manage disease and illness with nutrition. And so that is something that a nutritionist is not trained to do. And so therefore we are reimbursed by insurance. And so a dietitian is like seen as, I don't want to say medical provider because you're not diagnosing and managing, but we're part of the medical team.
Yes.
And so we can work in hospitals and all of that sort of thing. Whereas a nutritionist, you're going to see them more and maybe at a holistic practice, or maybe at like a private practice or something like that, or doing their own thing. But they're not going to be reimbursed by insurance, and there's no credentialing behind their name. So there's no exam you have to pass or anything like that to be a nutritionist.
Oh, okay.
So, and then what was the second part of your question? What kept me feeling limited? Was that it?
Well, just kind of like you said, the overview of an RD, what an RD can do, why someone might want to be an RD.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I get this question a lot, emails from people that say, why did you choose to become an RD, or do you think I should be an RD versus a nurse or versus whatever it may be? My thing is, for me, even since I was in my internship and even throughout college, I knew I wanted to do nutrition, but there was always this side of me that was unsatisfied. Like I would see a nurse doing an exam or a doctor doing something, and I'd be like, I want to put my hands on a patient, and I want to like care for them, and I want to be, ordering the labs and doing all these things. And so for me, I loved the medical side of things, and I loved the hands-on patient care that you get with nursing or medicine too. So for me, an RD was very limiting. So I loved food, but I liked it as like a component. Versus someone might want to be an RD if they full on love food. That is the only thing. They're not concerned with like all the hands-on patient care, because you're not like touching patients if you're an RD. And you might be like pressing against their belly. That's about it. So I think if you love food and that's your only focus and your only passion, and you don't have a desire to care for patients more than just nutrition, RD is a great route to go. Especially as even what I do at Nutshell, where I work mainly with women with eating disorders, I do a lot of therapy and counseling. And while I love that, I would never want to only do that. And so I think a distinguishing factor is, does your mind not want to do more? And if it doesn't want to do more than food, and that is like your passion, your desire, and all of that, go the RD route, 100%. You don't need to become something else. But if you are curious and you do want to do more, then I would say that the RD ends up being limiting.
Perfect. So that's a great explanation. I didn't realize that was the difference between RD and nutritionist. And that's a really important thing to think about is billing insurance, because you're going to be limited in your patient population if you can't take insurance.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
like
huge.
I don't take insurance as in my private practice because it's way pricey.
Yeah.
But I am able to write a super bill for people, and then they can submit that to insurance. So I can, code it.
Right.
I can ICD-9 code, and then they can submit it to their insurance.
Right.
But if you weren't an RD, that wouldn't even be an opportunity.
Right. Wow, that's really interesting. Okay, and so it's a 4-year degree and then 1 year of this internship.
Yeah.
Versus being a nutritionist would just be a 4-year degree?
You could be a nutritionist and take an online course. You could be a nutritionist and take, I think the Integrative Institute of Nutrition is something you could do. You could probably call yourself a nutritionist if you read up enough about something online.
Really?
So nutritionist is not, this is a good way to put it. The registered dietitian is a protected license.
Yeah.
So you're either licensed or certified depending on what state you live in, versus a nutritionist, that's not a protected title.
Okay.
Anyone kind of has free game over it, if that makes sense. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So your credibility is higher. Now, I will say that I know brilliant nutritionists, and I know brilliant RDs, and I also know not so brilliant nutritionists and not so brilliant RDs. So that's not to say that like RDs are smarter.
Right.
They're just more credible.
Yeah. That makes sense. And that's true with every field. You can be good in whatever you do, or you can be bad in whatever you do. And whatever letters behind your name doesn't necessarily matter.
Yes.
But that's a really good difference to understand. Okay, thank you. Do you have any advice for people who are thinking about trying to decide between kind of medicine, PA, NP, or who are interested in nutrition, or what should you tell kind of the budding like pre-health students of America?
Yeah, what to do? For an RD, if you love food, you only want to do food, and that is your thing, and you want to be like the expert with the credibility in nutrition, go be a dietitian. But I think that in my mind, I think the RD, if you ever want to do anything more, an RD is a great complement to a medical field.
Yeah.
If you're interested in medicine at all, an RD is not going to give you the scope of practice that you want.
Thank you so much. I think this is going to help so many people, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for asking.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll leave all of Robyn's information at the end of the video so that you can find her at her blog and her website, Twitter, Instagram, everything, and her YouTube as well. So definitely check Robyn out. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye, guys.